Assalamu alaikum, Tamkinat Mansoor. How are you?
I'm good. Walaikum salam. What about you?
I am good. Thanks for asking. So, how's going life?
Life's going fine.
So, what
A
you
little
doing
busy,
nowadays?
which I like.
That's great. And what are you doing nowadays?
Uh, well, basically, I'm a doctor. So I'm running my own clinic. And other than that, I've just finished shooting this web series that is supposed to be coming, uh, supposed to be actually launching on Eid. So I had a pretty hectic week. And now I'm back home just doing my clinic and other social media stuff. Not very productive or very, you may say, artistically productive. Itna nahi hai. But otherwise, yes, since I'm working in aesthetics, so that's also sort of artistic. So that way, I mean, in that scenario, it's going pretty fine. But recently, I've not made any videos recently,
All right.
so it's a bit cold out there.
And how come like these two are quite opposite fields? I mean, the recording thing and then the medical thing, these are two opposite things. So, I mean, which side is your passion and which side is you doing just because you had to do it? Or it could be
Well,
anything.
I'm basically now an aesthetic physician, and I absolutely love my work. So I think both of these fields are my passion. But if I'll have to choose one, uh, or rather, if you'll ask me to pick just one, then obviously I think I'm going to pick acting and writing because that I guess is something that I wouldn't really want to live without.
That's
But
nice.
right now I'm happy doing both.
That's wonderful. And I mean, is there any difficulty that you're facing when you're managing two things? Because I mean, of course, if you're working on the one side, the second thing or the other part of your life can get affected easily. For instance, if you're on the shooting, your clinic can get affected. Is it so? Is it happening, or are you managing it well?
That's not the part where I find it difficult to manage. I find the part where I have to leave my kids to somebody else. That is a bit difficult for me. But luckily, I live with my parents, when they're both working. So there's this time constraint that I have to face. Whenever I have to go somewhere, I'm constantly thinking about, back home and how my kids must be, making life hell for my parents. And that's something that bothers me. Other than that, I think I'm managing well.
And when did you start this acting thing? When you were a student and when you started your professional life?
No, I had done my MBBS. I was even done with my first post graduation, and I had two kids already. So yeah, I started pretty late. I think I started in 2017. So I was very well settled in my career as a medical professional and otherwise too. So I started it after finishing off everything else, I guess.
All right. And how was the acceptability from your family side and from the society side when you jumped into this side? I mean, because like doctor, they are the most sophisticated. It's the most sophisticated field of the society, and same as the acting. But still, people take it. These are the two opposite sides, two sides of the coin. So, how was the acceptability level of from your family and from the society?
I think my family had no problems. My parents have raised all of us to be independent individuals. So they didn't really think much of it, I guess, in the beginning. They didn't think that
Right.
it was going to, become something big. So they were fine. And society, I don't really give a shit about society, to be honest. I mean, they never let anybody live anyways. So might as well just, do whatever you want to do and enjoy.
Yeah, that's a wonderful
As
approach.
long as there's, as long as the person criticizing or making a comment is not a stakeholder in my life, I don't really care.
That's great. And when it comes to your acting side, you have selected the comedy, is it so? Or are you doing some other roles as well in the acting?
I never really, when I started off, I never really thought that I would be a comedian as such. As such, uh, I won't say that I have a problem with it because I think it comes sort of naturally to me. I even in person, people uh, tell me that I am a witty person. I believe myself to be, uh, overall a witty person. So it didn't really mm, come as something that I would have to put in a lot of effort to do. But it's not something that I would want to, it's not the only thing that I would want to pursue.
All
I
right.
mean, whenever it comes to writing down, I write pretty serious stuff, and serious to the extent that it kind of gets a little dark at times. And I think the comedy that I do is also, it can also get a little dark. So I think that, having said that, and having known that this is something that, for example, you may call my forte, but I would still want to, try. I would rather desperately want to try something different now. And I, I won't say that I've gotten bored of it, but I would definitely want to try and see how I do in some other genre.
That's great. That's great. And hopefully you'll be doing that quite soon, and might be you're doing it already. And let me know one more thing. I mean, you are kind of a person who has experienced two different fields. And how easy or difficult was it to jump into both of these fields as a woman? On, I mean, of course, we're talking about specific this society, the Pakistan culture, and all.
I think it's being a woman, even if you have to go out. I mean, it's just as different as it's just as difficult as it is for me as a woman to step out of my house. I mean, if you and me step out of our houses simultaneously, then you might not even have to think about the things that, or might not even have to, uh, you
What if I
know,
get worried?
consider consider those things that I have to actually plan my whole visit around. So yeah, that's how it is different. For example, if you'll go out wearing whatever you want to wear, nobody's actually going to say anything. If you go out, you're sitting with a guy or a girl, nobody's going to, pay that much of an attention. At least not on you. They might pay that much of an attention on the girl who's sitting with you. If you're smoking, uh, it's pretty normal around for men to smoke, so nobody's even going to,
Bother.
look at you twice. If you are using some abusive language, or if you are, just blurting out some obscenity, nobody's going to blink their eye because that's pretty normal. I mean, if I do any of these, I am going to be labeled, uh, what, from
Yeah.
one end of the spectrum of galis to the other. So that's how it is different. The way it is different to be in our society as a woman is the same way online. I mean, even worse because in person, people might just be a little wary, or they might just be a little careful because, I will be there in person and there will be other people around who can um, stop them from doing whatever they're doing, or they might have to think about the consequences of their actions or their words. But online, people don't. You can just say whatever you want to say to anyone without even showing your face, and you might just delete your account and make a new one, and start with a clean slate. So it's even more cruel, I might say, online, for women.
That's great. And in the beginning, you said you don't give a damn about the people, what they are saying. How did you develop this thought, this mindset? I mean, this is kind of a bit, I mean, extreme mature mindset that we don't see normally in our society in the women. And how did you develop that?
Well, to be honest, it's not completely true, because when somebody says something abusive, or somebody says something that hurts you, it does affect you. But eventually you have to weigh it. You just have to see if this is something that is going to bother me in the long run. Is this person important to me?
Hmm.
Does this person mean anything to me? Do they have a stake in my life? If no, then in the long run, you don't have to dwell on something or sulk
Hmm.
about it for long. So yes, it does affect me. If somebody comes up to my face and call me a woman of, of a lesser character, or say something about my family, of course it's going to bother me. But does it make me change who I am? Does it make me change the way I do things? Does
Hmm.
it make me change my stance? Not at all.
Hmm.
So that is how it doesn't bother me. It doesn't make me change who I am. It doesn't change my stance on things. It doesn't change the way I plan to do stuff or plan to live my life. That's where it doesn't bother me. Does it make me feel sad or hopeless or hurt? Yes, it does.
Good, a good answer. And what would you suggest to the women, to the girls or might be female who are planning to jump into these profession, but they are a bit reluctant because they also take it like they are going to face all these things. And the way you have developed these things with the passage of time, with your experience, what would you suggest those girls? What they should do? I mean,
Well, again, I would just like to say that if you'll have to develop a thick skin, but that you'll have to do whether you're on social media or not. Uh, just have to get it a little bit thicker if you're on social media. So I would just suggest that do not engage with trolls, and be sure that whatever you're saying or whatever you're doing, you're coming from a place of concern and coming from a place of knowledge. So if you have a strong base to start with, then people will not be able to shake you that easily. And backlash, I think, again, just you just have to weigh if whoever is saying it really matter. If they don't, then just don't dwell on it. Just delete and block.
great. Okay, so I mean, becoming a doctor, which means you were, I mean, doctors are more like the bookworms nowadays because that's what they have to do. And when it comes to standing on the stage, that requires the high level of confidence, that requires very good public speaking skills, the communication skills, and all. How do you develop those? I mean, that's something for which we usually do not get trainings from our institutions.
I don't know. Because I was not conventionally a pretty girl, so I think I learned how to speak because that was my only way to get people to pay any attention to me. So I think I just developed as I grew, and confidence. I think it comes with practice. I wasn't confident at all in the beginning, and I used to just think that how am I ever going to face how am I ever going to go on a stage and face people and audience, or the thought of being in front of the camera used to make me feel all kind of jitters. But I think if you start to do something repeatedly, you get comfortable with it, and that's how it happened.
Now you are. I mean, I was just watching you on stage, and you were such a confident person. Would you like to share the first time when you were on stage and your confidence really shook at that time? How were you feeling? What the moment was, and where exactly that happened?
I I used to take I was forced to participate actually in all sorts of declamation contests when I was in school. So at that time, I used to hate it. I used to hate going on stage and, delivering a speech. So yeah, I think probably the first time I went to do it, I must have felt, I don't remember it exactly because it was a very long time ago, but I must have felt really shaky. But I think I must have eased into it somewhere in the middle of it.
All right. And one more thing. I mean, if we talk about the organizational culture, how does it go? I mean, the acceptability of women as a working woman in any organization. How does how do like your colleagues support you? They, I mean, the culture they have developed over there. down, and we very commonly see the harassment is there. I mean, the harassment laws are coming more familiar to the people and all. So how does it go in an organization when you're working over there? What difficulties you face? I mean, does it really happen or not?
I I haven't exactly faced it in a very raw form of it,
All right.
but I think growing up in Pakistan, or a place like Pakistan or India, I think women get so used to being harassed that at times they don't even realize that they're being harassed. Because seriously, if I go out, I'll already be ready for somebody to just pass a comment or say something vulgar, or just stare at me. I'm already prepared for it for a very long time now, because I've faced it for so long, and I faced so much of it growing up. So I think at my workplace, I can't really pinpoint at something that a lot of people have made me feel uncomfortable. Uh, but it has happened so, I mean, it has become such a norm now, you know, that I can't remember just one instance where or just one incident where I can just tell you that, yes, that happened. And now I remember it. I just remember feeling a little uncomfortable almost every day, because, I used to work in a government hospital. When I'm just walking through a lobby or walking through a ward, maybe some attendant of a patient, uh, they used to look at you really weirdly. They used to pass all sorts of comments, although we were, treating their women, but still. And some senior might just, look at you in a way that you wouldn't want to be looked at with. So, I mean, it's so prevalent. It's just so rampant that I can't really. I've definitely felt uncomfortable, or felt, you might say, even violated a number of times. But it has become such a norm that I can't really put a finger on just one incident and say that, yeah, that's one time when I felt really, really uncomfortable. So yeah, in that sense, uh, I've not faced that kind of an harassment. But you do realize that being a woman in a workplace, in a, where men are in majority in every sense of the word, you do know that you don't have that much of a nuisance value. If I'll go and complain about a certain thing, it might not be taken too seriously. But if a man, or if a male doctor will go and complain about it, go loud, ek do galiyan nikalega, then everybody is going to hear it and do something about it. So yeah, I think being women, we are not given that much of a nuisance value. We are not heard. We are not made to feel as important as the male counterparts are.
Great. Okay. At the last, I would ask you. Let me tell you. Like, I mean, you know it. I'm representing here an educational institution, and the purpose of the conducting this interview is all about exploring and knowing and getting it unleashed from the experienced people, from the working people. That were the flows they found when they were in their studies, and when they jumped into the career. Were the flows they found in their and themselves when they got into the mature life, that okay, fine, we are working now, and these are the few things that our institutions, might be schools, colleges, universities, should have worked on these things. So what do you think, if you get a chance, or if you get, like, let's suppose, if you get chance to give your opinion, what are the things that educational institution needs to improve, needs to work on, in order to make a person competent for the market, or for the work life, might be?
Well, I think, firstly, if you talk in terms of being useful in the market, then I would say that students should be made to learn skills rather than just just memorize theory. Because if you know your subject perfectly, if you know each and every theory, if you know uh, all the hypotheses, and all the conclusions,
Hmm.
even then, if you can't practically make something work, then all of your knowledge is useless for somebody who wants to who wants to run a specific organization.
Hmm.
Because when we take all of our degrees, and when we take our thesis and stuff to a place where we want to work and earn our livelihood, the
Hmm.
person who has started that place, he doesn't care about uh, how well you can talk about a certain
Hmm.
topic. He cares about if you can solve a specific problem at the workplace or not,
Hmm.
if you can make things work or not,
Hmm.
if you can generate the revenue that he has hired you to generate. So I think we have put so much of emphasis on learning
Hmm.
how to talk, and
Hmm.
learning how to pretend to be who we are not,
Hmm.
that
Wonderful. Hmm.
we have actually forgotten
Hmm.
uh, how to do things.
Hmm.
So all of us, even when I go to my kids' school, they just tell me we don't allow them to talk in Urdu, and I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, they say that's what they have to. That's what they have to show.
Hmm.
That's what they have to uh, sort of market themselves as. That we don't allow our students to talk in Urdu. We don't allow our students to talk in Punjabi, and that's their selling point. And I'm
Hmm.
like, why not? I don't care if my kid cannot speak in a fake accent.
Hmm.
I care if they actually, if they actually know what they are studying, if
Hmm.
they can actually solve a problem as a working person. So
Hmm.
I think a lot of stress has been put on how well we can say
Hmm.
words,
Hmm.
and we have not been able to actually make our children understand
Hmm.
where to use that word in a sentence. And
Hmm.
I think that's where we fail.
Yeah.
I would want my kids to learn skills, so that even if there is a dystopian future where there is no use of their English speaking uh, proficiency, they will still be able to do something with their hands, and grow some crops, eat
Hmm.
on their own, be on their own.
Hmm.
Right now, I don't really know if my kids will be able to survive without me. I would want them to learn skills
Hmm.
which can make them useful human beings, you
Hmm.
know, rather than just teaching them words that they can speak to impress somebody who might not even care who they are. So
Hmm.
that's I think what we have to work on.
Hmm. In the beginning, you said you are not working on anything productive, but the things that you have said were really, really productive. I really appreciate that. And every single thing that you were saying was more about that the education system, or over here, we are trying to fabricate things instead of going into the depth and learning and giving exposure of what exactly is needed, which is missing over here. Well, Tamkina, thank you so very much for your time. And it was really worth listening to you on the ideas that you have shared with us. I mean, of course, which you have experienced. You have, I mean, this is not from any book. You did not memorize it from any book the way, I mean, they were teaching us. This is all about your experience. And the learning that comes from experience is better than the learning that comes from the books. So thank you so very much for your time. Take care. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.